You know that gray stuff? The latex dust, the shavings that get under your fingernails when you scratch a ticket. That's not just residue. That's the physical manifestation of hope disintegrating. It's dirty. It smells like old coins and desperation. You've seen the guy, maybe you are the guy, standing at the counter of a 7-Eleven at 6 a.m., coffee, pack of smokes, and $20 on scratch-offs. The clerk doesn't look up. He knows the rhythm. He scans it, you scratch it, you lose it, you leave. It's the most efficient transaction in capitalism because you're buying absolutely nothing. You're renting a fantasy for 30 seconds. And the state loves you for it. They call it a voluntary tax. That's the polite term, the suit and tie term. But let's be real about what this is. It's a tax on people who are drowning. It's a tax on the guy whose transmission just blew up and he's got $400 in the bank and rent is $1,200. He's not bad at math. He knows the odds. He knows he's more likely to get struck by lightning while getting eaten by a shark than hitting the Powerball. But the math doesn't matter when you're suffocating. When you're stuck in a wage cage, making money for someone else, watching inflation eat your paycheck before it even hits your account, probability is a luxury for people who have savings accounts. For everyone else, that $2 ticket is the only exit door visible. The state knows this. They bank on it. They engineered the game to exploit exactly that panic. Look at the map. Go ahead, pull up a heat map of lottery sales. It doesn't light up in the Hamptons. It doesn't glow in Silicon Valley. It burns bright red in the lowest zip codes in America. The lower the income, the higher the sales. The more desperate the neighborhood, the more aggressive the advertising. It's predatory. There's no other word for it. The government, the same entity that's supposed to protect you, educate you, build your roads, is essentially running a numbers racket that would make the mob blush. If a guy on the street took your money with these odds, he'd go to jail for fraud. When the state does it, they call it funding for education. That's the biggest lie of the bunch. It's for the schools. Bullshit. You dig into the budgets and you see the shell game. Sure, lottery money goes to education, but then the state legislatures look at that pile of gambling money and say, great, now we can cut the actual education budget by the exact same amount and use that tax money for something else. It's a wash. The schools don't get better. The books are still torn. The teachers are still underpaid. The only thing that changes is that the funding now comes from the pockets of the people who can least afford to pay it. You are watching a system that feeds on its own casualties. And the mechanics? They're rigged. I don't mean the balls are weighted, though who knows. I mean the psychology, especially the scratch-offs. They are designed by neuroscientists, not game designers. They use something called the near-miss effect. You need 3 cherries to win. You get 2 cherries and a lemon. Your brain doesn't register that as a loss. It registers it as almost. It floods your system with dopamine, just a little less than if you'd actually won. It tells you you're close. Next one. Definitely the next one. It's the same wiring that keeps a rat pressing a lever for a pellet of food. They are hacking your survival instincts to steal your rent money. But let's talk about the dream, the jackpot, the big one, the exit velocity money. You think that's the solution, right? You're sitting there, maybe driving to a job you hate, thinking, if I just hit the numbers, everything changes. No more boss, no more debt, no more fear. You're right, everything does change, but not the way you think. Because the only thing worse than losing the lottery is winning it. This is the part they don't put in the commercials. You never see the after picture 5 years down the road. You only see the big check, the confetti, the fake smile on the local news. Let's talk about the winner's curse. It's not a ghost story. It's a statistical probability. The rate of bankruptcy for lottery winners is exponentially higher than for the average American. Think about that. You are handed enough money to build an empire, to generate generational wealth, to never lift a finger again. And within 3 to 5 years, most of these people are broke, destitute, worse off than when they started. Why? Because money amplifies who you are. If you don't know how to manage $1,000, you definitely don't know how to manage 10 million. But it's darker than just bad spending. It's the predators. Take Jack Whittaker, West Virginia, 2002. Jack wasn't even poor. He was a successful businessman, already worth over $1 million. He knew how to handle money. He won $315 million on the Powerball. At the time, it was the biggest undivided jackpot in history. He took the lump sum. After taxes, he walked away with over $113 million. Cash! He was a good guy, wanted to help people. He gave money to churches, he tipped waitresses hundreds of dollars. And then, the sharks smelled blood in the water. Within months, his car was broken into. Thieves stole $500,000 in cash he just carried around in a briefcase. Why was he carrying it? Because he could. Because the money had already started to detach him from reality. People sued him, constant lawsuits. Everyone he had ever met, everyone he had ever walked past on the street suddenly had a grievance. They wanted a piece. He started drinking heavily. He started going to strip clubs, throwing money around like it was confetti, trying to buy the feeling of being liked. But the tragedy wasn't the money. It was his family. He gave his granddaughter everything: cars, clothes, cash, an unlimited allowance. You know what happens when you give an unlimited allowance to a teenager in West Virginia? You attract drug dealers. You attract parasites. She was found dead, overdose, wrapped in a plastic sheet behind a junked van. Her mother, Jack's daughter, died shortly after. Unexplained causes. Probably grief, probably the stress of watching her family dissolve in a pool of gold. Jack Whittaker, the man who had everything, ended up saying, "I wish I'd torn that ticket up." He lost his family, his reputation, and eventually he lost the money too. The system ate him alive. Or look at Abraham Shakespeare, Florida, won $30 million. He was illiterate, kind-hearted, a casual laborer. He didn't buy a mansion, he just paid off mortgages for his friends. He gave money to anyone who asked with a sad story. Then he met a woman named Doris Donegan D.D. Moore. She said she wanted to write a book about him. She said she wanted to protect him from the leeches. She took over his assets. She transferred his house, his funds, everything into her name for safekeeping. Then Abraham Shakespeare disappeared. His family thought he was on a beach somewhere, finally relaxing. Nope. He was under a concrete slab in a backyard. She shot him twice in the chest. She didn't just want the money. She wanted the money without the man. This happens over and over again. Suicide, murder, kidnapping. The ticket isn't a golden key, it's a target painted on your back. When you win, you lose your anonymity. Most states require you to go public. They want to use your face as a marketing tool. Look, it's real. You could be next. They trot you out like a prize pig, putting your name and your face on the news, signaling to every con artist, every distant relative, every criminal in a 500-mile radius exactly where the money is. They sacrifice your safety to sell more tickets to the next batch of suckers. And your friends, the guys you drink with, they're gone. Oh, they're still physically there, but the dynamic is dead. Every conversation is tainted. If you don't pay for dinner, you're a cheap bastard. If you do pay, you're flashing it. If you say no to a loan, you're a traitor. You become isolated, paranoid. You sit in a big empty house wondering if your wife loves you or the bank account. The money hollows you out. It strips away the struggle, which sounds great, but it also strips away the purpose. When you don't have to work, when you don't have to strive, you're left with yourself. And for a lot of people, that's a terrifying place to be. You start looking for highs to replace the satisfaction of earning. Drugs, gambling, high-risk investments. The house always wins. Even when you win, the house wins. So, why do we do it? Why do millions of men, smart men, hard-working men, line up every week to throw their labor into a black hole? Because the American dream is broken. That's the secret. That's the engine driving this whole machine. 50 years ago, the deal was simple. You work hard, you show up, you're loyal, and you get a house, a car, a vacation, and a retirement. You could raise a family on one income. The line went up. Effort equaled reward. That deal has been shredded. Now, you work harder than your dad did, and you can't afford the house he bought working part-time. Wages are flat. Housing is astronomical. Healthcare is a luxury. The ladder has been pulled up. When you remove the possibility of upward mobility through work, you create a vacuum. Hope has to go somewhere. If you can't save your way to freedom, if you can't work your way to security, then the only path left is magic. The lottery is the only place left in America where you can turn $2 into a new life. It doesn't matter that the odds are 1 in 292 million. It doesn't matter that you're more likely to become an astronaut. It's the only chance. And a 0.000001% chance is infinitely better than zero. The system knows this. They know they've squeezed you dry. They know the rent is too high. They know the wages are too low. And instead of fixing the economy, instead of making housing affordable, instead of dealing with inflation, they offer you a ticket. Hey buddy, tough break. But hey, imagine what you'd do with 100 million. It's a pacifier. It keeps you docile. It keeps you dreaming about the jackpot instead of looking at the gears of the machine that are grinding you down. If you're busy picking numbers, you're not building a guillotine. They are selling you back the money they stole from you $1 at a time, minus the vigorous juice. And the saddest part? We know it. We know it's a scam. We know the stories of Jack Whittaker and Abraham Shakespeare. We know the math doesn't work. But we buy the ticket anyway. Because standing in that line, holding that slip of paper is the only moment in the week where we feel like we have any control. It's cheap therapy. It's a moment of silence in a noisy life where we can close our eyes and pretend we aren't trapped. But you are. The ticket isn't the way out. The ticket is the bars of the cell. The game is rigged. The only winning move is to flip the table and walk away. Real wealth isn't a lump sum. Real wealth is seeing the trap and stepping around it. Stop scratching, start looking.